Welcome to the United States of Small Business, a podcast where the essence of American entrepreneurship is celebrated in every episode. With host John Quick at the helm, join us as we embark on a journey through the heart of the nation, uncovering the inspiring stories of small business owners from coast to coast. Experience the vibrant energy of bustling cities and the serene beauty of small towns, all while discovering how individuals are turning their entrepreneurial dreams into reality, even against the greatest odds. Each episode brings you face to face with the dreamers, creators, and doers who form the economic backbone of our country, all sharing their spirit of innovation and resilience. Whether you are in the early stages of sowing the seeds for your own business, scaling new heights in your current venture, or simply captivated by tales of grit and triumph, you are in the right place. Tune in on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and beyond. For deeper insights and to connect with the heart and soul of America's main streets, visit UnitedStatesOfSmallBusiness.com. Subscribe to United States of Small Business with host John Quick now and be inspired by the powerful stories of entrepreneurship, community, and the unwavering pursuit of the American dream. Begin your journey of inspiration with us today.
Welcome to the United States of Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, John Quick. Today, we're joined by Georgia Langinger, founder of Salus Publishing Company. With 20 years of experience in the publishing industry, Georgia's passion for sustainability and diverse voices led her to create a unique publishing house that prints 100% on recycled paper or tree-free paper. Tune in today for insightful conversations about the challenges and joys of running your own small publishing business in today's fast-changing world. So without further ado, Georgia, welcome to the United States of Small Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, this will be fun to hear a little bit about your story and your journey and kind of the paths that you've gone on. And I think it'll be really great for folks listening in to glean on some of your insights and lessons learned along the way. But first, tell me about what prompted you to start a publishing company, a pretty unique business. Tell me the story. Everybody's got one.
So for mine, I started off just loving writing and loving literature and books and stuff like that. Read a lot as a kid, and then I studied English literature in university. And then I went on because I thought I was going to be, just a freelance environmental journalist. So I got my master's degree at the University of Oregon. And so I started, and the Galapagos Islands and then in Ireland, and I was going to research and I was going to do all this stuff, and came home and actually became a teacher, and just because I kind of fell in love with education at the same time. And I wrote my first book, and so it was when I was pregnant with my son, and so I was so excited. And as a new author, you write the story and you think that's the end of it, and then you realize, oh wait, oh no, I actually have to get it published now. And so the publishing and getting it published, especially, in today's age, is just, it's a complicated process where, anymore, you got to get the agent, you got to get, the agent has to find the publisher, and then the publisher, it's a whole endeavor, which a lot of new authors don't realize takes years, potentially. And so long story short, I went through kind of a traditional publisher for my first book. My second book, I actually self-published through Amazon KDP. And my background in grad school and whatnot was I did my master's thesis on the history of paper, actually. And so,
Nice.
yes, so whatever people, if you want a cure for insomnia, you can read my master's thesis. It's on the, different kinds of paper in the paper industry. And so in books, newspapers, and magazines. And so long story short, with my books, I always had this goal of, I really wanted to print my books on tree-free paper or 100% recycled paper. That was always the goal. And with my traditional publisher, they're like, that's cute. No. And then with Amazon KDP, I looked at that as being more environmentally friendly because they're print on demand. One of the biggest things about the publishing industry is how much waste they create, right? All those books that aren't sold, well, they tell us that, oh, they can be recycled. They can be pulped. Well, they can be, but frequently they're not. They're just tossed. And so, so for my third book, I'm like, okay, come on. Like I can do this. Recycled paper. There's got to be a publisher out there. And hopefully there are others, but I couldn't find them. And so I started my own. And
Nice.
so Yeah, and along the way, I'd met other authors who were phenomenal, and they were going through kind of the similar struggles of just trying to get their work out there. They have a story to tell, and they were going through all of the routes you're supposed to go through, and nothing was happening. And so I thought, well, you know what? Sign with me. And so I started, like I say, my company, and we have 8 children's books currently in print, and out there and available, and 1 book of poetry we just launched this spring. And so, yeah, it's, all of our books are 100% recycled. Our mailers, our promo materials are either 100% recycled or tree free.
That's pretty cool. Now, are these all your books that you're publishing, or you're also
Yep.
publishing other authors as well?
Other authors as well, right? So I've signed, let's see, 4 different authors. And so yeah, so in California and Oregon, and we worked with illustrators in Canada and England and just the UK in general, and I'm here in California. So yeah, so I've published one of my books through Salus, but the rest are all other people because I really love working with other authors and getting their stories out there.
That's awesome. So tell me about maybe one of the challenges that you had while starting this company. It sounds like there's not that many companies like it in terms of using recycled material to print on. Tell me about some of those challenges you faced, how you overcame them.
So there have been multiple. So, first off, starting a business when you don't have a business background is super fun because you're just learning as you go. And then I had the brilliant timing of starting my business in January of 2020. So yeah, having this idea of like, all right, children's book authors, we're going to get into schools, and you're going to be in front of kids, and you're going to read your books. Oh, you're going to do all these public events. It's going to be great. And then lockdown happened. And so that was another like, oh, snap. Okay. And we rework it, right? So I think with anyone starting a new business, you face challenges, some of which you can predict and some of which obviously come out of nowhere. And so it has been a process of, kind of figuring out the benefits of being virtual and the challenges of being virtual and learning as you go. And with recycled paper, yeah, it's I think when you go in as kind of as a company, and when I'm talking to printers, and there are many phenomenal printers out there, right? Who have quality papers and they're fantastic. And when you get to go and say, okay, you can send me all of your samples and that's wonderful. The only one I'm going to choose is 100% recycled paper. And so then that kind of changes the dynamic of it, because then instead of 30 different possibilities and weights and finishes and styles, they might have 5. And so from those 5, then you pick the best. And I have been extremely fortunate because the printers that I have worked with, Hemlock Printers, they're they have an office in San Francisco, but they print in Canada. And then Indigo Ink, they're actually back east. Both of those have been phenomenal. And then they do have really high quality papers that are sustainable. So finding your supply chain can be a challenge, but once you have it, you're good. So yeah, it's been, yeah, there's a variety of challenges. And of course, book publishing, in these days, corporations own many of the book publishers. So when you're trying to be a little guy starting out, you're trying to get distribution, you're trying to do this, it's already preset for the big companies. And so trying to kind of get in is, yet again, it's a challenge, but we're working on it.
That's awesome. So there's going to be folks listening in that maybe they want to, write a book themselves, or maybe they've done 2 or 3 books and they are thinking, man, this publishing company sounds pretty cool. They use tree-free paper, recycled paper. Tell us about the process. What does it look like for you to bring on a new author? Tell us all about that kind of process and scenario, just in case, there could be the next author listening in that's going to get a hold of you next week or today even.
I would love it. That would be absolutely fantastic. I love it when authors reach out. With every one of my authors, I think the biggest thing that kind of, I don't know, determines whether I sign an author or not is basically it's whether I love the story, and whether, it's because, of course, yet again, lots of big publishing companies, they'll print, hundreds, if not, thousands of titles. And if they're not successful in that first year or two, well, poof, off they go. Whereas for me, I've told my authors from the beginning, I'm not going to give up on them. I'm in it till the end. And so I sign books and I sign authors that I will promote till the end of my days. And so I want to love it. And so, and it's just been a variety of ways, right? Like Andy Domick, phenomenal author that he is. He's got a TikTok channel where he does a bunch of dad jokes, and he's hilarious. I read his first book, which was called Our Garden, which we are going to sign and bring under Salus probably in the next year or two, and kind of do a reprint. And anyway, his stuff was phenomenal. And so I will promote Andy Domick and his, phenomenal books till, forever. And then through him, I met Marva Diaz. And so she has a phenomenal book series that it was actually stories that she told her kids when they were little. And those turned into books, and they're great books, and people love those books. And then, but the funniest one I would say is Cy Swan. Cy Swan is 85 years old, and I just published his first book
Wow.
at the beginning of this year. Cy is a frequent guest on this YouTube channel called Essential Craftsman. So it's basically if you want to learn how to build a house or, build a ramp or build anything, there's this guy named Scott Wadsworth, and he's phenomenal. And he, like I say, has this frequent guest as this, Cy Swan, and he's a blacksmith. He has a forge in his barn, in his garage.
Nice.
And anvils and all of it. And so these videos you watch where it's just, he's built his own cannons. And so you can launch, he launches stuff, and he makes knives. And long story short, my husband loved the videos. And so I wanted to buy my husband a gift for his birthday. So I contacted Cy, and then we got to talking. And then he mentioned he'd written the story 40 years ago, but he showed it to a few friends and family, and they, at the time, were kind of like, I didn't really like it. So he shoved it in a drawer and just forgot it there for 40 years until he was talking to me. And I was like, well, Cy, I'll read it for you. And, it can't hurt, right? I'll read it. And so he sent it to me, and I absolutely loved it. And so I published it. And so it's
That's
phenomenal.
awesome.
It's doing really well. It's the two tales of Timothy Mouse, and it's just a joy. So I love it. So I always encourage authors, to reach out. Always be brave, right? Because especially Cy's a perfect example. For 40 years he gave up on his own story, and you should never give up on it. And so I will happy to read it anytime. Yeah. And especially
awesome.
especially, and it's not just for me, but for any publisher. Hopefully, like a good publisher, a good editor, when they read something, even if it's not a good fit for them, they can try to point you in like the direction of someone who is a better fit, right? So like, I've read stuff in different genres, and it might not be our jam, but I pointed them into, writers' conferences or other publishers I know or other agents. And it's just, hopefully that kind of gets them further on their path.
That's pretty awesome. So tell me why somebody should care about recycled paper or tree-free paper, and what is it? I don't even know what tree-free paper is. So give me a rundown of what that is and why people should care about it.
Okay. So, that's a big one. So long story short, paper was never meant to be made from trees. Trees are an extremely inefficient way of making paper, right? When you look at some of the oldest books in the world, the papyrus scrolls, the vellum, Guggenheim Bibles and all that stuff, they're not made from tree paper, right? So originally, thousands of years ago, in Asia, paper was made from what's called, papyrus. And so that's part of the jute family of plants. So, well, not jute, excuse me, hemp family of plants. Jute is one of the plants that are in hemp. So hemp, of course, people think of hemp and it's like, oh, marijuana. Actually, there's like 12 different plants. It's not just, marijuana. There's like kanaf and bamboo and jute and all these things. And it's these plants, these reeds that have simultaneously very strong fiber, but also very bendable and very pliable and very moldable. So to make paper out of, hemp or like papyrus doesn't really require that many chemicals. You don't really need that much work to do it. And it's pretty darn like strong stuff. So likewise, way back in the day, of course, in Europe, books are made from vellum, like animal skins, right? When you think of kind of leather. And so yet again, that stuff lasts for centuries because of course it's strong. trees actually became kind of a paper source in the quote unquote discovery of the New World, right? When Europeans showed up here to North America and were like, oh my gosh, there are these billions of massive trees. Cool. What do we do with them? Oh, I know, paper. So tree fiber as a whole needs a great deal of chemicals to break those fibers down, to really get it into that mush that you can then flatten it out and color it, dye it into the white paper we use today. So the problem with that is once all those chemicals are used, they typically cannot be reused. So then they go down our rivers. Yay. And then all the byproduct, right? The pulp that's not used, the bark, all of that, yet again, right down the river. And then of course, when you have that paper and a tree made, then most people toss it and then it's never used again. And so then you got to go through the whole process all over again to get that, those paper towels you really need to, clean up your house with, or your toilet paper. The fact that we still today use toilet paper that was, direct from trees boggles my mind, right? So, yeah, I think people need to care about it because, of course, as we know, around the planet, we are seeing the effects of climate change. It is undeniable. And so I think whatever we can do to reduce the waste that we are creating, we should do it. And especially, when like 20 years ago when I was in grad school, the biggest complaint about recycled paper was like, oh, the quality's bad. Like it doesn't feel the same. Or, you can't get that bright white, all of which are wrong. They're just wrong. And so, recycled paper, when you take that paper and when you mush it down again to make new paper, you're using a small fraction of the chemicals, and that stuff gets to live on, and maybe a tree out there gets to keep standing because you're using the recycled stuff instead of cutting it down. So
Awesome.
so I think it means a lot to me, and I think hopefully it's meaning more and more to people as well.
Well, I think it's very ambitious for you to have that as a goal, and it sounds like you've been successful at it so far. 20 minutes here has gone by in a flash. Do you have any last minute thoughts before we head off? Tell folks where they can find you on social media as well.
So social media, we're on Facebook and Instagram. You can always email me at saluspublishing@gmail.com. Of course, Gmail's easy. We have a website, saluspublishing.com, which is being currently revamped and will be back up as soon as possible, where you can see our titles. And yeah, we're also, of course, our titles are available on Amazon. And so you can check out those as well. So, and if you want to see
Awesome.
Sai,
Well,
he's on Essential Craftsman. But yeah.
awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us today, Georgia. For folks listening in, I'll put all the links into the podcast description. And for folks that have maybe you've published a couple books, or maybe you're wanting to publish a book and want to get your story out there, I want to encourage you to contact Georgia. Again, we'll leave all the links in the podcast description. We hope everybody has a phenomenal rest of their week. And until next time, I'm John Quick from the United States of Small Business Podcast. Thanks, Georgia, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.